lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan.
And I'm Manny.
And today we're going to be talking about a comic book that, if I'm being completely honest, I did not even know existed, which
Same.
I'm very ashamed to say that because Ed Brubaker is my favorite writer. Brubaker and Phillips are my favorite creative team. And yet somehow I did not know that this issue of Hawkman even existed. Was it for you, Manny?
Yeah.
Showing it, I think, in one of our Facebook groups or somehow. I think you messaged me or you posted about it. And
Yeah, I
I
did.
was,
I did both because I was so floored when I discovered it randomly
yeah,
too.
just a one-off issue in this Hawkman run that I just phenomenal. And I think this was also, I think I'm correct in saying it, that this is probably one of their earliest collaborations. I mean, it's definitely before, I think before their creator owned stuff. I don't think Criminal had started at this point. I don't think that started really until they went to Marvel. They did Scene of the Crime with Michael Lark, but Phillips just inked it. And
Yeah,
then they did some other stuff to get, I think, a couple other things like Sleeper they did for
Sleeper and
Wildstorm.
Point Blank, like those Wildstorm books that sort of started them. That really started them on the collaboration. I think was
Yeah.
was those books. Yeah.
But this is such a fantastic issue. And obviously, as you can see, this isn't going to be your typical Hawkman issue. And this is one of the flashback issues where or no, I'm sorry, it's one of the past lives issues. And they did this throughout the run because I remember like when Jeff Johns was writing that they'd have like, there was I think it was like an 1800s issue where they're in the Wild West. Because
Yeah.
if you know anything about Hawkman and Hawk Girl, Hawk Woman, however you want to call her, they are constantly reincarnated and they have all these past lives. They always find each other. And this was an interesting past life because they're not together. They're not superheroes either. And which is something that they were in past lives. They'd either be a hero, vigilante, whatever. Beautiful cover by Sean
Yeah,
Phillips.
man.
I love this, like almost like an ink wash that he did.
Looks like watercolor maybe too. I'm not sure.
Just really, really great, stunning cover. And we open up and we're in the present day. And we don't see a lot of Sean Phillips superhero work. So when I get to see it, I'm always super excited, and I really like his Hawkman. I
I
think
do too, man.
it's really good. And I love how it opens up with the mace just hitting this dude straight in the mouth.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
a typical Brubaker Phillips is to open up on action, a punch.
mhm,
You know what I mean? Like a fight going on. Like it, they're so great at just dropping you into the story and you're good to go right away, man.
yeah. And we see like they're in this museum. Carter, aka Hawkman, is like going up to this glass, and we see this like ring in the shape of a hawk. So obviously there's a reason he's going there. It's probably nth metal, or however you want to say it, nth.
I think it's NTS.
Yeah. So Hawkgirl comes up, she's like, "You're not seriously saying that we flew all the way for that?" And then she's basically calling him a thief because she's like, you're really gonna steal that? But he makes a good point. He's like, well, everything in this room was sold on the black market and it should go back to its rightful owner. She obviously asks, well, who is that? And he says, me. Right. So then she kind of like, I like her joke where she's like, well, I'm pretty sure at least one of my past lives owned a Rolls. So I'm thinking,
Thinking, yeah,
and what's also important to note is that, they were lovers all the way back in the time of ancient Egypt, and they constantly are reincarnated, like I said. But at this moment in time, she doesn't remember her past life. At the time, like he was kind of trying to force it, because he
yeah,
remembers everything and she just doesn't, because she's fighting it, but eventually she kind of, I think, gets her full memories back. So she gets bits and pieces, if I remember correctly, but not fully. So she's always torn. Like she was even dating, I think, who she did. She was dating one of the other JSA members at one point.
yeah. This was that period where Johns was writing JSA, which we've done a video on that great run too.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind doing a Hawkman, Jeff Johns episode too. That'd be dope.
Yeah, yeah. That was a dope series too. I was all about that stuff when it was coming out.
Yeah, so here we go. Like as they're flying, he's like talking to her about it. This is the catalyst that's going to transport us back in time, back to the year 1917 in St. Rock, Louisiana, which is where the Hawks,
The story opens. Yeah.
that's where they're living at this point. So that's,
That's
that
right.
town is always kind of, I think, a part of their history, or it's at least in this sense, Jeff Johns kind of shoehorned that into their history where
Yes.
they've always kind of lived there. The title of the story is The Blackbird.
Yeah. A
And
past life story. Yeah.
yeah, and it's a definitely a noir story, you know?
Yeah. I mean, this is now we're getting into like the Brubaker and Phillips that we recognize more, like like this very noir influence, like art and storytelling with like a hard boiled narration.
Yeah, I love
And it's
that.
so cool how easily it transitions.
Yeah, because and it's perfect because like I
Yeah.
said, that so many past lives that it of course they had a past life in this era. So like why
Yeah.
not tell this kind of story? Even like you said, the narration, it was raining when the train finally got to St. Rock that night. Like I could hear it
Like
like that.
what a great opening. That's like straight out of like Dashiell Hammett or one of those old like like writers like that. Like Brubaker is a student of all that shit, so he brings it into
Yeah,
his stories very easily.
I know, and just the mood. Brian Miller on colors. I'm not familiar with his name, but did a great job of really setting
Yeah,
the
man.
mood with these like dark colors, the rain,
And the rain,
everything.
it's to me like making rain really look good in comics is hard.
Yeah,
Like it can be very distracting and like it really sets the tone here without it becoming like overwhelming.
no, and he's basically a detective, right? That's
He's
what
a
he is, or a
Pinkerton, which
Pinkerton, a Pinkerton.
yeah, which I think was almost like I don't know if they were. I think they might have been a private organization at first. Like security.
Mm-hmm.
I think for banks and for people like William Randolph Hearst and stuff like that that wanted to have like their own security, and it might have transitioned later to some kind of government stuff. But Pinkertons were like a big deal for I think from like the late 1800s until about this time, because even on Deadwood, which I was a big fan of, you see the Pinkertons. So like big part of American history, and I think it was maybe one of the world's first like private security firm.
Yes, the Pinkerton National Detective Agency was an
Yeah,
independent police force founded in 1850 by Alan Pinkerton, former deputy sheriff of Cook County, Illinois, and it specialized in railway theft cases and protecting trains and apprehending train robbers. That's what it says on the internet. So that totally makes sense because
yeah.
I mean, look at them; they're coming for the train station. So,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's Brubaker like knowing his history.
so the whole point of what they're doing is they're going after this black bird
Yeah.
statue.
It's almost like a Maltese Falcon. I mean, this is also
That's
like an
exactly
homage.
what I thought.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
So like, Brubaker is almost like writing his own, he's sort of like a Sam Spade character here, like he's looking for
that's
this and
that's
yeah.
what's great about this is that this doesn't have to be a Hawkman comic. Like
No, man, I
it
mean, it could
works.
just
It
read
works
as a
as
as a done. Yeah.
yeah, it works as its own story. It's funny too when I've ever read these past lives issues. I've always like been like they should just do a mini series on a bunch of Hawkman's past lives.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, or just do a series of one shots. I mean, like, and then give each one shot a different, well-known creative team to do what they do, but in that past lives. You know what I mean? You got Brubaker here,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got you could even have like the team behind that Texas Blood to do like a West. You know what I mean? A Western one, stuff like that, man.
I love this too, like how it reminds me of Dick Tracy, like with the nicknames that these like crooks had when he calls him like
Yeah,
Weasel George. The
yeah,
Palooka I was planning to beat the statue out of, but someone had got to him first and chosen bullets instead. Like this
man,
fucking this
so good. I mean,
it's so
Brubaker
good.
like and like he never uses like overly flowery words. Like his writing is like is I'd say it's like almost deceptively simple because he paints such a fantastic image with like a very subtle use of words, man.
Yeah.
And that's the hard boiled fiction influence. That's how those books are written.
Then they
Yeah,
get their address of where they're gonna go. And
and of course, like any good noir, there's always a woman in it.
but then we get so it's Red McMurdy who he's going to. He's going to the his gambling dens and whorehouses. I
Yeah,
like how he just comes in and doesn't give a shit. He just
yeah,
straight goes up to this fucking basically I would assume he's not the boss, not the mob boss, but like the lieutenant. So he's like right a step below. That's at least how I'm kind of reading him.
yeah. He's definitely like one of the top dogs in the town.
Yeah.
I love his introductory dialogue too. Like, don't look now, fellas, but we got some private dicks here. Like,
I know.
Hello, Red
I like
Line.
this too. And Red's like, give him the business, boys, and he just doesn't.
Yeah,
He doesn't flinch. You know.
yeah,
I'm
and
just here
and
about the
and yeah,
Blackbird. And then he's like, I want to intercept your package. He's like, what are you gonna get it back from me? No. Like, I'm
yeah.
not helping you. I need what I need. And I love
And then they
this too.
quickly
Like a
disarm
great,
them. Yeah,
not a lot of fighting going on, but super effective. Like just a quick little like showing him like who's really in charge. You know, kind of
yeah.
who has the power in this situation. I'll put one in your spine, and I mean it. And
What I love that line. Yeah.
that also kind of plays into Hawkman's kind of he's cool with killing. Like, and that's also
Yeah,
always been something with him, like where his fellow members don't like his brutality, but he comes from a time when it wasn't kind of looked at the same way, at least.
yeah. I mean, he comes from, originally he comes from ancient Egypt. He's a
Yeah.
warrior, like, so he's used to killing people on the battlefield and all that. So he has almost a barbarian kind of like attitude towards a lot of shit.
Then we go to an opium den in the middle of St. Rock, like just so
I
good,
love the
dude.
coloring here too. I mean, this whole issue is fantastic, man. And to think that as awesome as this is, like Brubaker and Phillips only got better together. Like
Yeah.
it seems like if this was as good as they ever got, it would be good enough. But no, man. Like
I know this is like I don't want to say it's the perfect comic to hand somebody, but like I think this is if you want to tell people like Brubaker and Phillips, one of the greatest creative teams, you hand them this, and this is such a
yeah,
great one and done
yeah,
that perfectly encapsulates what makes them great. And like you said, they only get better with each
yeah.
passing project. But I like this, in the narration when he's like, I'd always gotten chills when I saw her because this is his love, Shire Hall, but here she's called Sheila Carr, and he
Yeah.
talks about she's the only girl I ever loved. He hasn't seen her in 5 years, so and it always takes something, and I think they kind of allude to it here, but something has to happen for them to get their memories back, right? Like
Yeah.
so maybe they
Some
have
kind of
this,
traumatic event or like some kind of like act, you know what I mean? Like
yeah. So while they may feel like this weird feeling of like the connection, right? Like they don't necessarily always know. That's why in the present day, Kendra doesn't remember their past
mhm.
lives. What the heck happened to you? And she's now like,
She's basically a gangster's mole, She's with this guy like Big Louis Moretti.
yeah. And that's crazy
Yeah, a
too.
great gangster name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's crazy when she gets taken. She's like, leave me alone. Don't be a rube. That's Big Louie's dame. And no one touches Big Louie's property. And they drive off. And then when we find out like who Big Louie
Who Big
is,
Louis is, yeah.
so good. I mean, I immediately knew once I saw, and I have to say this, so genius to make the smoke coming out of the cigar completely pitch black. I mean, I'll spoil it, but like it's Hathset, which is the guy that originally killed them in ancient Egypt, and now
Yeah.
he's part of the cycle of them being reborn. So
And
he's
he knows it.
always, yeah, he does know it, and he's always the catalyst to kind of make them jump again or be reincarnated later on. But there it is. There's the blackbird sitting on the desk, and he as he's talking to him, that's what's great is he's like, you don't know what's going on, but I remember it all this time around. And that's another thing. I feel like that may also be, I could be wrong, but I feel like that's also the case where only one of them will remember everything. So sometimes
Yeah.
Hathset wouldn't even remember something. Something has to be a catalyst for him to remember. Or maybe sometimes Hawk Girl is the one that remembers. And then I just love this because he's like, how would you know I'd come after that? Because of what it is. It's tied to you, just like she is, just like I am. And just that smug, fucking douchey look to him as he's talking
Yeah.
to both of them,
And the fact that he's wearing like that robe, like it's just again like he's playing with classic Noir tropes, but like the fact that he's injecting them into this Hawkman story just creates something new.
Mm-hmm.
Like this team has been able to reinvent war and crime comics in a way that I don't think I've seen anyone else do in comics, which is like you, they're definitely in my top creators of all time. I mean, I blind buy anything they do at this point. So
Now we have two opposing mobs going after because we got Reg McMurdy's mob coming in, going at Louis's house, and then
great pacing too, man. They know when to start bringing in the action to wrap it up. You know, people think that done in one stories are probably easy, but in a way, I think they might be more difficult to do because you've got to achieve so much in like what
So
22
little.
pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, dude, to have to tell a beginning, middle, and end where there's no kind of recap, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes those like what you could call like a one and done or something where like, you know, the old comics would have a complete story, but like some of it would be telling you the shit that's been happening, right? Like it would be a
Mm-hmm.
recap, like 4 pages of
Mm-hmm.
it. But here it's like, no, he had to tell all of it, a compelling story, get you like to know the characters. And you don't even really, I mean, you know, if you know Hawkman, that this is obviously past lives, but you don't know that they're constantly reincarnated. Like there's none of that. It just throws you back in. It's like it kind of hints at it, but it doesn't like beat you over the head with like, okay, well, this is what happens. They constantly get reincarnated. This is their adversary who's also tied into it. Like, no, like you're able to figure that out very well through Brubaker's story. And I love that once he touches the blackbird, that's when his memories start coming
Yeah.
back. And then he opens it up, gets that ring, which was the whole catalyst to tell us this story, and he puts it on, and then he's flying. And then this is what sucks, dude. As these memories are coming back into him,
They
Hathset
get killed.
comes, and then we come
And
back
the
to the
image of them
present day.
flying, I mean, like you said, it's like it's beautiful, and it is a beautiful image, you know, like it
Yeah,
is.
I love that too. And I know that my love will never leave my arms because he's holding her as they die. And then now we learn a little bit, right? Like where he's like Hathset, our old enemy, linked to us, following through the ages. And says it's not a happy story, but even she looks at it in a different way. She's like, it's in a weird way, a tragic way, like maybe that one moment before they died was enough for them. Maybe one moment is all you get in some lives. And then I'm assuming Sam is an author. Like what author would that be?
I'm trying to think. I mean, like
I tried
who
to
it
look
could
it up,
be.
but I couldn't figure it out. So I'll have to continue to look that up. But obviously that's definitely a call to
Yeah.
an old author that's written books, maybe about the Pinkertons, I'm assuming, possibly. But really great ending, really great story. I mean, I can't even say enough good things about Brubaker and Phillips.
I
And
think Samuel Fuller is who it is. Yeah, Samuel Fuller. Yeah,
yeah, but I
who
see,
did
and that's
write?
another thing. Brubaker always does that kind of stuff in his books. He always pulls out
Yes.
some facts, kind of like little Easter eggs for you to kind of sift through. Great issue, great one and done. Highly recommend. Go pick it up. I actually, when I was looking for it, I mean, I'm sure maybe if I was dollar bin hunting, maybe I could have eventually found it, but I didn't have the patience for that. But
Yeah.
it's not exact. It was like a $6, $7 book. It's definitely worth every penny. Dope issue. The run
Yeah.
of Hawkman that preceded this was really awesome too. So go pick it up. Check out the rest of the vids on the channel. And make sure you like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you're notified every time a new vid drops. And on that note, we're out.